Stay tuned as we preview the proposed Groton Town budget on this week's edition of Welcome to Groton. Welcome to Groton. Today with us we have Town Manager John Burt. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So we are discussing the fiscal year budget 2019.
Right.
First of all, how is that the process different from what you've done before?
Sure. The initial process is pretty similar to what I used in Michigan. We started the process here back in October. I give guidance to the department heads. Prepare your budget at a level service, keeping what we have, but then also give me some alternatives for a zero budget increase and then a negative 5%, a 5% reduction.
Okay.
We start meeting as a group in January with the budget analyst, the finance director, and the HR director. We look over all the budgets that get submitted by the departments.
Right.
We review them, come up with all our lists of questions, and then we start meeting with every department individually to go over all our questions and go over their budget. That takes several weeks to go through that, to knock that out. But that's very similar to what we did in Michigan. One difference here is, of course, we have a July 1st start date to a budget in Michigan.
Correct.
In counties in Michigan where I came from, it was calendar year. So my first few meetings here was a little confusing as
Yeah.
people, you said FYE 19, like, no, it's
Wait,
18.
what?
Wait, what? You know.
Yeah, it takes a little adjusting.
Yeah. But it's a good process, and then
Good.
we're moving on now to the next stages. If you want to hear more about the
Of
town's
course,
process.
yeah.
Okay, the town's process is I have to get the budget to the town manager's budget, and this is all dictated by the town charter. I have to get the budget to the council by the 15th of March. So
Okay.
this week, or
Yes.
will it be in the past when this airs, but let's do the 15th, and then there's a public hearing required by April 6th every year.
Okay.
This year it'll be March 28th.
Okay.
And that will be at the Senior Center at 7 p.m. March 28th for the public hearing.
Excellent.
The town council then starts meeting, going through the budget. We have budget hearings throughout April. I believe it's April 28th. They have to make a recommendation on the budget.
Okay.
Then it goes on to the RTM.
Right.
And then at the RTM, they have subcommittees that review everything. Very thorough process. And then it goes to the full RTM. And I believe they have to pass the budget by May 25th of every year at the
Right.
latest. And then it goes back to town council just to set the mill rate. We have to officially set the mill rate by, I think it's June 9th, I believe.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot to deal with and take in, and months and months and months of budget planning.
Yeah, it's a thorough process
Yeah.
compared to Michigan, where we did have after I finished my budget, it then went to we did have subcommittees there that it went through. We had finance committee, personnel committee, that type of thing that looked at the budget, and then it went on to the county board. But there was no further level with there was no RTMs in Michigan, so
Okay.
it's a much more thorough process here.
And last year we had the whole complication of the state budget taking forever to get to us. How does that affect your planning for this year's budget?
Well, luckily the state does a 2-year budget. Last year, a lot of the dialogue was on state revenues. Of course, there was the threat to the educational cost sharing
Right.
dollars. Now with the Alliance District designation, that shores that up for a few years. So that takes that out of the picture. There is about, in terms of state changes, about $260,000 in grant cuts for this year, but compared
Wow.
to what we were facing last year, that's very minimal. So
Yeah.
it's very
It
doable
sounds
for
large,
this year.
but
Yeah.
not as large as last year.
Yeah, and there's mainly in 2 grants. It's the LoCIP, the local capital improvement program, is about $140,000 cut, and then $104,000 in the Mohegan grant fund, and then
Okay.
just a few thousand in other grants. So it's very doable.
Healthcare is always a big thing. Benefits for the employees. How's that looking for fiscal year 19?
Yeah, it continues to be an issue. Healthcare and OPEB and the liability there with the other post-employment benefits. Healthcare for both active and retirees, that went up by about 20% this year. And
20.
in terms of the budget where that's at, it's about $1.5 million dollar increase for this next year.
Oh.
And altogether, healthcare is about 7.15% of the new budget.
Okay.
So it's definitely an issue. And we did change over to the high deductible healthcare. We still have two union groups not on it yet. Most people are, though. And unfortunately, some of it is we only had a couple months of history and before we got our rates for the new year. So that has an effect. But we're still going to see $1.5 million increase. Now, if we hadn't gone to the high deductible healthcare, I didn't anticipate we'd have a much higher increase. So what it does is it slows your increase, but it's very much challenging.
Yeah, I bet. Now, with that, we've been on a hiring freeze and spending freeze. How's that looking for Town of Groton?
Sure. In terms of the hiring freeze, it's done by a town resolution of the council.
Right.
Technically, that's set to expire at the end of this budget year. I have recommended to them that they continue that. I think all positions before they're filled needs to be thoroughly looked at. We should, you need to vet those because, when you look at the cost of employees, including benefits, it's about 80% of the full town budget when you look at it.
Wow.
So that has to be looked at.
Right.
And especially, it's much easier to cut something while they're vacant than when you have a person in the position.
Right. So. Okay, so that brings me to one of our other questions, layoffs.
Sure. In terms of
it's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Try to do everything I can to bring the budget expenditures down. Removing fleet. We thoroughly look at the fleet, the vehicles that the town needs.
Right.
Try to whittle that down. We look at the capital projects, as I mentioned earlier, and greatly whittled that down. But we go through every item in the budget and talk about whether it's necessary or whether it can be cut, and that includes staffing. Now, there's a difference. There's some things that we can make a cut and it has an effect, but there are things that can take away full services where it's a full cut in services. That's more of a policy decision.
Okay.
So those are held off more for the council level. But if I can make a cut and it might have an impact on the town, but it's not fully removing a service, then I've recommended those. In the new budget, I've cut 8 positions. 3 of those do have people in them. We've looked at the transfer station. We have positions there that are being cut. That would reduce the number of days from 4 days there being open to 2 days. It'd be Fridays and Saturdays. And I'm sure that'll be thoroughly looked at through the council process. Right. And then also the emergency management 911 director position has been eliminated in the budget. So there's hard decisions. Not fun certainly for anybody involved. But unfortunately, I anticipate as we get into the council level of review that there might be more of those being looked at.
Right. So. Oh wow.
In terms of if you want to touch base on other cost increases in the budget, as I mentioned, healthcare is about $1.5 million increase. Contributions to other funds, that's about 1.8 million or 1.2 million increase, excuse me.
1.2, okay.
That's like reval fund. We have to put away money every year for legal fees and aerials for part of the reval that has to be done every 5 years. We have the computer replacement fund. We have vehicles in there. I do expect that to be whittled down a little further as we get into further in the budget process. Okay. We have the Board of Ed. That's about a $1.8 million increase to the expenditures.
Right.
And then also the capital projects, that's about $2 million increase. And part of what we're running into is there's less money to take from in the fund balance.
Right.
So that's affecting us too.
It's all been whittled away so much.
It's been whittled away over the years. That's really having an effect at this point.
Right.
And then our road bonding money, what we pay off towards the bond payments, that's up for about $750,000 for the new year. Ooh. So it's a different configuration of several different things that are causing the increases.
Okay. How much of the proposed budget, from your point of view as town manager, are you responsible for in reference to like town operations, et cetera?
Sure. I'm responsible for town operations, the contingency fund, and then a portion of the capital projects. About 30%, almost exactly 30% when the 3 are put together. The rest is education is 61%. Right. You have the subdivisions, Groton, Long Point, the city, and you have outside agency requests. So mine's only 30%. So the rest of it, I put in what's submitted in the budget, and that's for the council and the RTM to look at.
As for the proposed budget, what is the overall expenditures and mill rate looking like?
Last year's budget was more about state revenues. the cuts there. This year it's about expenditure increases. Our
Okay.
budget has gone up in the proposed budget at about 6.5% to $128 million. That's about a $7.8 million increase. I do expect that to be heavily whittled down though through the process.
Heavily.
So that's just the initial at this
Okay.
point. So. And then mill rate wise, if you were to stick with that budget, we'd be looking at about 24.97, which is about a 5.3% increase. And
Okay.
again, I expect that to change over time as we go through the council and RTM process.
Right, okay. So final mill rate can still change, but we're looking at that
Right now,
right now.
24.97.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, thank you so much. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk about specifics of the budget. I have a few more questions for you, and more information for you out there in the public. Thank you, and we'll be right back.
You've served our country and made us proud. Many of you have come home, continue to lead, and look out for one another. So it's important we all learn the 5 signs of emotional suffering. If you or someone you know is experiencing one or more of these signs, reach out, connect, offer to help.
Hey, what's the matter?
In or out of uniform, we can help our families and nation stay strong. Visit changedirection.org.
It does not take an extraordinary person to make a difference.
It's just a matter of what kind of a difference we choose to make.
You know, we do what we do on the field, but we have a duty off the field as well.
It doesn't take much to make a big impact.
Just having a positive attitude or helping someone every now and then makes more of a difference than I think any of us realize.
To learn more about starting an action team, visit our website.
Anyone can really make a difference.
Welcome back. Today we have with us Town Manager John Burt. Thank you again for being here.
Glad to be here.
We are discussing the budget, fiscal year ending 2019. Now, you mentioned the capital improvements funds. What capital improvement projects do we have in our budget?
Sure. The largest one is about $1 million. It is $1 million set for our police 800 megahertz radio system.
Oh, wow.
Nothing's been done on the system for over 20 years. There are blind spots, so to say, where you can't get radio
Right.
coverage.
It's kind of
in
important.
different areas. Very important. You know, it is a safety issue to the public and to our officers. That's the largest thing in the capital projects list.
Okay.
We want to integrate our CAD, our computer-aided dispatch, the mapping that 911 dispatch is based on with our RMS, our record management system, so that when officers in the field enter data, that it's also then, right now, it's a separate database. You have redundancy in what we do, but with an integrated system, you could enter information in the field and it would automatically go into the CAD system. So that's
Okay.
one of our big projects. That's about a $320,000 project.
So those are two different
things.
Okay, perfect.
And those were flagged by, we had a study done of what needs to be done technology-wise for the town, and those were two of the big ones flagged for our police department.
Okay.
Besides that, we have to replace our fleet fuel storage container.
Right,
It's about a
for the-
$400,000 project. Just it's past its life cycle. It's over 30 years old. We've been told we have to replace it in 19. And so
Okay.
that's about $400,000 to put in a new fuel tank there.
Okay.
But we besides our trucks and vehicles using it, the local ambulance services use it, fire service uses it on
Right.
this side of town, as well as many others. So
Right.
it's a needed thing. We have to convert one of our buildings at the annex, the garage there, to natural gas. Another thing that
Oh,
we're
okay.
mandated to do. That's also about $400,000. So we've got some large ticket items.
Now, converting it to natural gas, in the long term, that's going to end up saving us money,
Yes,
correct?
yes, that'll be great in the long term. It's just, finding that 400,000 up front
Right.
to do the conversion.
Yeah.
And then we also have 300,000 in there for pre-engineering on the Groton Long Point Bridge.
Okay.
There's known issues with that bridge, so we're starting that process. And then several other smaller projects. Now, initially, the initial list for projects approached 8 million. We've got it down
Wow.
to 3 million. So
Okay.
there's been a lot of projects that have been put off over the years, and we're still trying to whittle that down and see what's really mandated.
Right, and that goes back to your questions when you're going through
Yes, we
the
go
budget
through,
initially on your level.
Right. Yeah.
How necessary is this? How do we prioritize?
Correct. Each department that has a capital project request fills out a form, expressing the need, where the funds are going to come from, all that, and then we go through each of those with that department and really hash over, okay, is this a want to have, is this a need to have,
Right.
is this a mandated thing?
Right.
And so that's part of the process. We went from 8 million to just over 3 million, which is still a lot, though. 3 million is still a lot.
Right.
I expect it'll still probably be whittled down a bit by
Probably.
the council and RTM, but a lot of it's must-have. So
I was going to say,
we'll
a
see
lot of
what
it
we can
sounds
do.
very
Right,
necessary.
Right.
For especially the safety and,
Right.
you know.
It's hard with like the 800 megahertz system. Is it absolutely required? No. But is it absolutely needed? Absolutely
Yeah.
yes. So that, to me, is my #1 priority of the budget, is getting that system replaced. We're looking at joining up with the state system, similar to what you saw in the paper recently with Stonington. They're joining
Okay.
the state system. That's much more cost effective than us going on our own. That million, which would cover we think cover the cost of the state system as well as the radios we need, would be more like 2 million if we went separate, is on our own.
Oh, okay.
But we're still looking at all options and looking
Right.
at grant options and trying to get that price down. So
Well, you
it's a
have
work in
to.
progress.
Yeah, I feel like you have to look
Right.
at all your options.
Yes.
Quick question for you is, once the town budget is proposed, how long until you start running with these new things? If you have to cut something from the capital improvements project, then what happens? What do you do with that project? Is it now #1 on next year's list?
Well, we keep a rolling 5-year plan for capital projects, and like we said, we had the $8 million plan. If there's something I just think, things change over time. Maybe something's no longer needed. That might be fully removed from the plan. But
Okay.
if there's still a question about whether it's needed or not, then it rolls to the next year. And as we
Right.
get into the next year, we'll hash everything back over again and see.
Right.
The departments, again, look at their proposed projects. Have things changed? Can it be put off? They give me updated information. So that plan gets fully redone every year.
Right.
So.
And I'm sure the department heads are looking at grants all the time and
Yes.
other different ways to finance this that
Our
can
department-
help us get there.
Our department heads are great at looking at grants and trying to find alternative
Yeah.
sourcing. They understand the tight budget. They come in with lots of great ideas for where to cut.
Good, good, good.
It's a team
Excellent.
effort,
It
so.
definitely is a team effort. Is there anything else the town is doing to help keep town operations down, the costs down?
Again, just making all the changes we can to the new budget, whittling back. We just went through a RFP process for town attorney services,
Okay.
and then as part of that, we are returning to the current existing long-term attorneys, but we've got some cost savings that we've negotiated with them. So
Wonderful.
Anything like that, our purchasing department does a great job on that, making sure we
Great.
get multiple bids on things. Everything we do is about trying to save dollars.
Yeah.
So.
I think the purchasing department sometimes is the forgotten department behind the scenes that actually helps us
It's very
all
important.
so much.
Yes, yes. Our whole
Yeah.
I fear our whole finance department sometimes gets forgotten, but in terms of tax collecting and assessing
yeah.
and purchasing, they're all hugely important to the operations of the
Definitely.
town.
Now, you mentioned tax collection rates are also impacted by the budget.
Mm-hmm.
What is the tax collection rate looking at?
It's been holding pretty good. It's 98.4% was the target for this year and for next year. And last I talked to Cindy Landry, the finance director, we're at 98.3% collection rate. So we're just about there for the year. So things are holding well for the collection rates.
Wonderful. Are we starting to see our economic development efforts having a positive impact on Town of Groton?
Yeah, and our economic development department under the planning department, it's fantastic. They're all doing a great job.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, with the grand list for October 1st, 17, we did see a slight 0.1% reduction.
Okay.
That was mostly on two things: the Oddfellows agreement that the town entered into, as well as Pfizer personal property tax settlement that's out there. So, if not for that, we would have went up for this for FYE
Right.
19. I anticipate with all the good things that are going on, we're Mystic Education Center, that's well on its way. We've got several other schools that should be going out to RFP to develop soon. We've got the new tax increment financing tool that just got put in place, approved by the council last week. Okay. Over the next few years, we should see some great increases in the grant list. So it's just going to take some time. Got to muddle through a couple more years.
Yeah, I know that that department's been doing a big push, and they've been doing some great things that, you know, even just common person from another town can see.
Yes, some great things going on, and I think some of what's been lost with Groton over the past is marketing ourselves out there. Not sure everybody knows about Groton, and economic development is greatly helping with that, and they have a lot of fantastic ideas. And I think in a few years from now, there's going to be a lot more people outside of Groton that know all about Groton.
Yeah, I agree.
We're
known as the town that, you know, has something to do with Mystic.
Yes, in submarines, which is great, you know, and a very important part.
I agree. I think that's fantastic that they have been doing that push, and I agree that the marketing is something that the town could do all over. Even the police department has a Facebook page, right?
Right, yes, yes.
Is there anything else the public should know about the proposed budget?
Like I said, you know, it's been difficult. I anticipate more changes as the council and RTM gets into there. You know, we'll cut wherever we can cut. In Michigan, it's an interesting difference between Connecticut and Michigan. Michigan, there's a set formula for how much your mill rate can increase, and you live within that. You absolutely have to live within that. Yeah. It can even go backwards too, but based on if property taxes are going backwards. But here, you know, you can set it. So it's a different dynamic, but I come from the mindset of cutting what you need to cut, and that's what I've tried to do. You know, again, but some of it is more policy, so I've got to, you know, talk about those with the council. But so I anticipate more changes. However, we're not going to cut our way out of things. We need the economic development to keep growing the grand list. We need to be smarter about things. We need to look at how we're delivering health care to the employees. We have to fulfill our promises, but there are, you know, other ideas out there for health care. We need to cost share with any willing agency out there on services,
the sharing
no matter where
is a
they're
big
at.
one,
You know, we need to be smarter about things, and that's where I see us heading over the next year.
And I know, you know, the grants is something everybody's looking at all the time, but the sharing something that may be kind of a newer idea for many towns, cities, municipalities. I think it's something that would work out well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of places, the town council is certainly, the current and former town councils have embraced cost sharing. We're talking with the Board of Ed about some ideas. And over this, you know, it's hard once you get into the budget process. It's a long process to cost share and set things up. And sometimes cost sharing is easy. You know, you can jointly purchase, which we're part of a purchasing collaborative, you know, so that we can get better rates on purchasing paper, that type of things. But, but if you're talking sharing personnel, that's a long process.
Right, or transportation.
Right, and it doesn't always make sense. It has to make sense for all the entities involved. We just, the COG, the Council of Governments, is going through a study of where there are opportunities to cost share, and so we'll be talking with them more and with the people that participated in that more. There's different, you know, towns out there and agencies that we could potentially cost share services with.
That's great. You mentioned the COG. Can you explain what that is again?
Sure. You know, the regional council, the Council of Governments, and they look at a variety of issues. They're heavily involved in transportation, seat, and the bus system. They have a committee of COG that looks at their operations. They look at more of a regional, you know, kind of a holistic approach to what could be done at the, you know, for the region. And they're great to work with, and I expect to have a lot more dialogue with them on cost sharing.
If somebody wanted to look at the town budget right now, where would they go?
It's posted at each of the libraries. It's at the town clerk's office, as well as on our website at www.groton-ct.gov.
Okay.
It's a new website for me.
Okay. We'll get you, fiscal years and the .gov. So you have some public hearings coming up.
Yes.
Where and when?
Yes, the big public hearing is March 28th. At 7 p.m. at the Senior Center.
Yeah.
And I, you know, that's a big one every year. That's the kickoff to the budget season.
So if you have something to say, come and visit.
Once we have that meeting, the town council and the RTM gets all the input from the public, and then we start having our individual budget meetings with the town council. So I encourage people to come out and let their feelings be known.
Yes.
You know, it's important to have that feedback because, you know, we're facing potentially cutting some services or cutting back on some services. We want to know what the most important things are to the public.
Right, we see it from one aspect, you know, we need to know what the citizens and the community are thinking. All really excellent information. John, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to add real quick before we sign off today?
No, I appreciate you having me here, and I'm glad to get the message out.
Yeah, definitely. And come to the public hearing. If you have something important to say, make sure you say it so that you can give your input. And thank you again for being here today on Welcome to Groton.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.